What's going on? It's Fight Season MMA, and today I want to do a UFC rankings, pound for pound rankings. Just to let you know, this is just my opinion for pound rankings. This isn't the official UFC pound for pound rankings, and these are just of what I believe the ranking should be for fighters that possibly don't get as much shine. Not all champions are going to be on this list. This is going to be strictly pound for pound, in my opinion, who the best fighters in the UFC are currently. Let's get right into the video. First thing I want to start with is just say that not all champions are not going to be on this list. I do not have Dricus du Plessis and Alexander Pantoja on this list. Now, this is only a top 10 list. They would make the top 15 100%, but I do not have them on the list just because I think that there are 10 better fighters in the UFC organization than them right now. And I just wanted to clarify that up. Just because you hold a UFC championship does not mean that there are better fighters than you in other divisions pound for pound. And that's all I want this list to represent. Okay, first up, I want to start with Arman Tsarukyan at number 10. Now, a lot of people might be surprised with this pick, but I was going to put Charles Oliveira at number 10. And I was thinking that he just lost a razor close fight with Arman Tsarukyan, and I do think that Arman deserves this spot on the pound for pound rankings. Arman's wrestling style is incredibly good. He's incredibly consistent. He's got good striking to back it up. And you saw that he is a great defensive fighter against the submissions of Charles Oliveira. He does not panic when getting in a spot that he knows how to escape. And I ultimately think that that's going to propel him very, very far in the UFC organization. I think a fight with Islam Makhachev, again, is going to be a very interesting fight. I think both fighters are a lot better than they were previously when they fought. And I think that this could headline a card like UFC MSG this year, UFC 309. Number 9 on the list, I have Tom Aspinall. And the only reason that I have Tom Aspinall at 9 is because I think he needs to prove himself a tiny bit more within the division. Sergey Pavlovich win at UFC 295 was an amazing win, considering that Sergey was on an absolute tear, only losing in his first fight, which was a short notice replacement versus Alistair Overeem. But Tom Aspinall hasn't fought the best competition other than Sergey Pavlovich, which he knocked out in 2 minutes. He fought Marcin Tybura in his comeback fight after tearing his ACL. Now, the Curtis Blades fight, which he does have booked up in UFC 304, is a rematch from when he tore his MCL at a main event in England with him. And then he's fought Alexander Volkov, who's an incredible fighter, which is his probably best win on his book besides Sergey Pavlovich. But other than that, I think if he gets a Curtis Blades win and he gets a Cyril Gane win and possibly a John Jones win, he could be a lot higher up on this list. This ranking right here isn't just strictly off of skill. There's off of his potential that he has to fight, because I do think that if he does get a win over Curtis Blades or he gets a win over Cyril Gane, I do think that he's a current better fighter than John Jones, but I just don't think he's fought the competition to prove it. Okay, at number 8, I have Sean O'Malley. And that clinic that Sean O'Malley put on versus Chito Vera was one of the best fights I've ever seen in a performance-wise Sean O'Malley do. Sean O'Malley's takedown defense is improving ever so much. You look at that Aljamain Sterling fight where they knew if he got taken to the ground, the fight would be over, considering he had that rib injury. And you combine that with a striking ability to where he is so lethal on the feet, where he slides just out of range just to hit the shot. I think that warrants Sean O'Malley being up at the top of the pound for pound rankings. Now, the only thing is the same thing with Tom Aspinall. Sean O'Malley hasn't fought the best fighters in his division. He hasn't fought Merab Dvalishvili, Corey Sandhagen, Henry Cejudo, and he beat Peter Yan, but that was in a razor close decision prior to fighting Aljamain Sterling for the championship. Ultimately, Sean O'Malley is improving every single time within his fights. Every single training camp is helping him improve, and that takedown defense being good truly allows him to be this high on the rankings. Number 7, I have Max Holloway. And Max Holloway, that performance over Justin Gaethje was one of the most incredible performances I have ever seen. I always come back to Max Holloway beating Justin Gaethje in that standpoint, because he went in there and beat Justin Gaethje at his own game. He found the greatest source of power ever allowed when going up to 155, and I truly think that was something that really helped Max Holloway's chin, which was already amazing, but helped his power, because cutting down to 145 for Max Holloway is an amazing feat, considering he is such a big guy. I have him at number 7. I was ultimately going to rank him higher, but there was someone who I put at number 6 who I didn't think I could rank below Max Holloway right now. But Max Holloway is an incredible fighter. His defense is incredible, and his striking ability and to be able to snowball his attacks is absolutely warranted of the number 7 spot. Number 6, I have Alexander Volkanovski, and I just didn't feel right putting Max Holloway over him, considering that Volkanovski beat him 3 times. And the second fight, apparently, I have not seen the second fight in a really long time, was a very close fight for Alexander Volkanovski winning, and a lot of people thought Max Holloway should have won, but ultimately it was close enough for Alexander Volkanovski to win. Alexander Volkanovski has dropped 2 in a row, but you look to who those opponents are. He got knocked out by Islam Makhachev on 10 days notice, and then he got knocked out by Ilia Topuria at UFC 298, which I have really high hopes, and I am really high on Ilia Topuria. But ultimately, we know Alexander Volkanovski is one of the most well-rounded fighters in the UFC. We all know that Alexander Volkanovski's ground game is elite. We all know his striking is elite, and he is an overall elite fighter, and that IQ is amazing too. The only thing holding him back is his chin. We all know Alexander Volkanovski's chin isn't the greatest, but ultimately that still warrants him the number 6 spot. Number 5, I have Alex Pereira at number 5, and the only reason that I have him so low is that his lack of ground game and takedown defense. You look at some of these other people on the list, like Sean O'Malley has developed a takedown defense game, but I just think that kickboxing ability of Alex Pereira is just so good. He's easily the best kickboxer in the UFC right now. There is no one that I would put up against him that would genuinely lose. You look at that fight against Jamal Hill where he absolutely slept Jamal Hill instantly. But you look at the Yuri Prochazka fight where Yuri Prochazka is a striker and he was easily able to get him down. You look at the Jan Blachowicz fight where he was taken down by Jan and he really wasn't able to get back up. And he just kind of sits there because he doesn't want to make a mistake on the ground just because he's not warranted, and that's on a specific category. Like I said, though, Alex Pereira is getting better every single training camp with his jiu-jitsu, with his wrestling, with his sambo, everything, his judo. But once Alex Pereira develops this, he will be the pound-for-pound number 1 fighter in the UFC just because of how elite that kickboxing is. Okay, at number 4, I have Leon Edwards, and I think Leon Edwards is probably the most well-rounded fighter within the UFC right now. Leon Edwards' striking is some of the cleanest striking in the UFC. Now, you have someone like Sean O'Malley whose striking could possibly be better than Leon Edwards, but the thing that sets him apart from Sean O'Malley is Leon Edwards' grappling and takedown defense ability. Leon Edwards' takedown defense has developed to be some of the best takedown defense within the UFC organization right now. And Leon Edwards always does the right move when he goes and isolates a hand just so he can be warranted from taking down. You look at the fight against Kamaru Usman the first time, he was the first ever person to take down Kamaru Usman. Now, I know Colby Covington had a takedown in that first fight, or that second fight with Usman, but it wasn't credited. But ultimately, Leon Edwards was the first person officially to take down Kamaru Usman. You look at his title defenses against Kamaru Usman and Colby Covington, where he looked dominant, even though they weren't the most exciting fights. But I think Leon Edwards is one of the best fighters in the UFC just because of how well-rounded he is and of how high his IQ is too. At number 3, I have Jon Jones, and this ranking isn't based on his skill in the past because we all know Jon Jones is the greatest fighter in the UFC history. But right now, I think Jon Jones is becoming older, and I still think those skills are going to hold up. I do think Tom Aspinall is a better fighter in that division than Jon Jones, but considering the people that they fought in the past, I could not have Jon Jones any lower than number 3. A lot of people might disagree with this, but I completely understand with that just because he's the greatest of all time. But right now, Jon Jones doesn't have the same pop in his step as he did when he was younger. You look at that Cyril Gane fight where he did win, yes, in 2 minutes, but he fought a non-grappler who is foreign on the ground, who got taken down by Francis Ngannou, who really doesn't have any ground game ability, no takedown defense, and Jon Jones was able to exploit that incredibly easy. I look at someone like Tom Aspinall in a fight between that. I think that fight would be incredibly hard for Jon Jones to take it down. Not saying he could never get the takedown, but you look at someone who's a lot more experienced in the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu department. Now, Jon Jones' striking is the really big thing holding him back, and that 84-inch reach is definitely helping him. I'm not saying that Jon Jones' striking is bad, but ultimately you look at some of the other strikers on this list, like Alexander Volkanovski, Sean O'Malley, Leon Edwards, Alex Pereira. They 100% beat Jon Jones out in the striking department. But ultimately, Jon Jones is one of the greatest fighters of all time. Like I said, I think he is the number 1 fighter of all time, and that definitely, those accolades and that fight against Cyril Gane definitely warrant him the number 3 pound-for-pound spot. At number 2, I have Ilia Topuria, and this might be an amazing surprise, but I am so high on Ilia Topuria. That fighting IQ that he possesses is truly insane. You look at the Bryce Mitchell fight, and his ground game is absolutely insane, and obviously you look look at that Alexander Volkanovski fight where he knocked him out in the second round. Ilia Topuria is probably one of the most well-rounded fighters up in the UFC besides Leon Edwards. The difference is Leon Edwards puts out a lot more output. Ilia Topuria is a bigger power puncher. The way he is able to manipulate angles and to be able to have perfect hooks and perfect knees and perfect Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu all the time warrants a number 2 spot. Now, the only reason that I have him above John Jones is just because he is younger, and I do think that that energy and that motivation that Ilia Topuria possesses is something that will grant him the number 2 spot over John Jones, who is someone who is already accomplished, someone who doesn't need to prove himself, and someone who's going out there just for the money fights at this point. Ilia Topuria, I think, is one of the most promising young talents in the UFC organization, and I think that he has the next possibility to go on a long championship run. And at number 1, I think it's obvious for everyone to know at this point, I have Islam Makhachev, and Islam Makhachev is the most well-rounded fighter in the UFC, and I know I keep saying that, but Islam's ground game and Islam's striking is so elite. A lot of people don't understand how good Islam's striking is, and Islam is one of the best, if not the best strikers in the UFC, and that is so valid. You look at his fight against Dustin Poirier, where he was outboxing Dustin Poirier in that fight, and no one thought that was going to happen. If anyone thought Dustin Poirier had a chance in that fight, it was because he could outbox Islam, and he was getting outboxed in that fight by Islam Makhachev. And Islam's ground game is something elite. You look at Khabib Nurmagomedov against Islam Makhachev, where Khabib was a lot more reckless, where Islam's IQ is a lot more toned in and a lot more valid going into a specific area. Ultimately, I think no one in the UFC organization beats Islam Makhachev pound for pound right now, and I think that's why I put Islam at number 1 pound for pound. Thank you guys so much for watching this UFC pound for pound rankings. This is just my opinion. I wanted to let you guys know again. Please don't be mad at the rankings that I have. Please let me know if I could do better or what your guys' opinions are down in the comments below. Please leave a like and subscribe because I'm trying to get to 100 subscribers pretty soon. I want to keep making more UFC content for you guys, and I really do enjoy it. So please leave a like, subscribe, and I will catch up with you guys very soon.